the biggest differentiator you have is yourself. You are the only you. So if you want to stand out, be yourself. It sounds silly, but there's so many people that they turn on interview mode and they try to be as generic as possible. You will be forgotten faster than you can imagine if that is who you are in an interview.
We're in positions of hiring people, right? And some of our friends, you know, as we network, we find other people are software developers, and they're having a hell of a time just finding something new. I mean, I think we're talking about one of our friends, 50 job applications, nothing.
Still unemployed.
One of the guys that we hired recently, he literally had a spreadsheet of over 100 places he sent resumes to, and I think he said he only got like 10 responses back.
There are more people applying for jobs than there are jobs available, and people don't know what to do.
Yeah. And like, these are, I don't know, like, again, we know them and they're good candidates, but like, it's just so weird that they're not making it any further than, hey, I sent you a piece of paper and then nothing.
Yeah. It's because there's 50 other pieces of paper. Developers have to figure out a way to stand out. And it isn't just print your resume on
and hope for the
thick paper with little ridges, like how
and mail it in with the embossed lettering.
Yeah, they really got to think about how to stand out. Now, fortunately, we look at resumes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And for the sake of this video, I think we should delve into how we filter through some of the noise, because I think that will help people stand out. And our advice may not work for everybody, and it may not be wholly applicable.
Yeah, but if you're having a hard time, maybe this is something that might inspire you to try something different.
Yeah. And this is kind of our hot take. So I'm sure we'll hear a lot of noise in the comments about how none of this advice is applicable, but it is how we have approached filtering.
Yeah.
There's 4 steps to that we have to standing out among the crowd. Step 1, and Chris, I'll let you kind of go into this. Be prepared. What does it mean to be prepared when you're applying for a job?
Oh man, there's been so many times that somebody, and you know, it's either the resume just doesn't match the job description. And honestly, I think we had that and not saying it's a good or bad thing, but like we had that discussion early in the pandemic when people are laid off. Is like, are people just applying
to apply
because they have to?
Yeah.
Right. Because of, you know, that's how some unemployment laws are set up, and it's just so weird. So like, yeah, sometimes you just legitimately just not be qualified.
So one of the things that we do when we're looking at a resume, and this is just our first filter, is it's not, how well formatted is your resume? Do you have a bachelor's degree? I don't care about any of that right out of the gate. What I'm looking for in a resume is, where's your tech stack?
Yeah.
And how closely does it align with ours?
Yep.
Doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
So what?
And even and again, for us at least, like if you say like, you know, you need 5 years of experience. I'm thinking of the guy that created React. He applied for a job, and I said, you need 10 years of React. Literally the person that created it did not have enough experience to do it.
That's hilarious. You don't know enough about React to apply for this job. Yeah, the years of experience, it's important, but it is not my first filter.
No, and usually, I don't know, usually whenever I see those years of experience, it's just about, is it an entry-level position, mid-level, or senior?
Yeah.
Like that's the way I always try to read it, even though it doesn't come off that way.
I was interviewing a guy today, and I was pretty candid with him. I said, look, you're a senior developer, but I'm not sure you're a good fit for this project because your tech stack is not in alignment with the project. And he really downplayed it as like, it doesn't matter, I'll figure it out. And while I do believe he will, The problem is he's competing with a dozen other people
that are ready to go.
Yeah. So in this case, we're still giving him a shot, but I was pretty honest with him. I'm like, the market is hot right now. Like, and there are a lot of people who are not going to need the 4 weeks to ramp up that I know you're going to need. Even though you're a senior, I know you're going to need 4 weeks to familiarize yourself with the tech stack. These kids who don't need to make as much as you because they haven't been doing it for 20 years are going to be able to hit the ground running a lot faster. So make sure your tech stack aligns with the position. And that might mean you apply for less jobs.
Yeah. Well, and also like one of those things is, just because you have you're like, oh yeah, I know that. Make sure it's at least present on your resume.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, because honestly, like that, because how are you going to convey that resume is your first impression to someone, and if the information that you need to convey isn't present, they're not going to get that.
Yeah. And this is our first filter. Some companies, they're going to look at that degree and they're going to say, don't have a degree, you're out of here.
Right.
I can't speak to that because that's not how I filter candidates. But regardless, that first or that second filter is probably going to be tech stack. So make sure that your tech stack aligns with the position. And maybe you don't know React, but you know Angular. Maybe you don't know C#, but you know Java. That's okay. There's alignment there.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but it's there.
Right. And just know that you might be at a disadvantage with someone going into it, but you're at least you might not be out of the ballpark at that point in time.
And it's worth, when you're in that interview, highlighting, hey, I'm aware that I don't know C#, but I'm really freaking good at Java, and I've already started the process of ramping up to this technology.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I try to do, especially if you get into that interview process, is, when we do the technical screening. So if I were in that position, it's I'm going to relate what I know. Okay, I know this is how I could do this in Java. Okay, like I have the solution. I just need to figure out how to do it in C#. Okay, like clearly you have the idea of how to solve the problem. You just need that syntax or understanding of how to do it.
Yeah.
So and that might be most of the battle there is just, do you even have a good solution in the first place?
And with tools like Copilot, ChatGPT, that bridge is really easy to close.
It gets smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So be prepared. Make sure your tech stack aligns with that position. Also, take 5 minutes to learn about the company and the culture.
Yeah. I mean, there's been, I get a kick every once in a while. Is like, we get through, so the person gets through the screening, they got through, resume's good, they got through the first part of the interview, and then you ask at the end, what questions do you got for me? What do you guys do?
What do you guys do? That's such an off-putting question. Like, it's like you're applying for a job that you know nothing about.
Right.
I don't know why that bothers me, but it does.
You should, because it's like, why did you even apply for the first place?
Yeah.
Like, again, everybody's motivated differently. Is it based on money? Is it based on pride? Is it based on, the work that thing's actually going to entail? And just right at that point is saying, I'm not going to care.
Yeah. This is just going to be a paycheck. And I'm not saying that it can't be just a paycheck, but
are you going to be happy doing that?
Yeah. Are you going to be happy working at a company that you know nothing about? Some people would probably say, yeah, and good on you. But just know that the person you're talking to cares about the company.
Or the product or some.
And when you care, it builds a relationship. Yeah. So I don't want to say fake it, but like try to care a little bit about the company that you're applying for.
Yeah, or the product or something about just again, know something about what you're walking into.
Yeah.
Don't just be like, oh, this is the front door. Like maybe at least know the name of the company.
Yeah. What are you guys called?
I think we actually got that question once.
How did you find the building? Point number 2, be specific. And in this context, I'm going to say don't talk about the role you had or the things you did necessarily. Talk about the projects you worked on and the problems you solved.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, so I think we've talked. I don't know if we've talked. I talked with some people about this. You know, what's the difference between an SE 1, 2, and 3? It could vary from company to company. Right?
What is the difference in your brain?
Well, in my brain, the SE1 is, I look at it in two different ways. But the SE1 is they can build a field, right, front to back, cool.
A field like a
data element,
thing on a
like
page.
a text box or something, whatever it is. SE2 can build a module. No, a feature. Sorry, they can build a feature up and down. So, you know, it might be like a whole page, like an administrative page of managing users or something like that, right? So it's not like a whole system, but it's just like it's a, you know, could be critical piece of functionality, but they can do that independently up and down.
Yep.
Then you got the SE3, and then that's the person that's whole module, right? So like I'm going to build like the user management, like I'm going to do the roles, I'm going to do the permissions, I'm going to do all the things that need to go into it, and I can do that front to back by myself. And then you got the senior who should be able to do literally system from scratch, nothing, get the infrastructure, everything, like all that up and scale it up and down.
Yeah, and support the SE 1, 2, and 3 in the process.
So as you go up in tier, you're supporting all the people below you.
So talk to me then about why being specific in your resume matters.
Right. So, you know, we talked about this one of our earlier videos is about sometimes your manager might be testing you on a different kind of project, right? And that might not actually align with what your job responsibilities are or what your title is. But that by doing that project, and if you're successful at it, it can show that, you know what, you are nearing the ladder toward this next step.
So for example, you might be a junior software developer, but you built a module.
Yeah.
If you just said, I worked in user management, or I was responsible for adding features to user management, that might not speak to the significance of what you did. You're like, no, I added claims-based authentication. There's a difference between working in an authentication system and building an authentication system and integrating with single sign-ons like Okta, Azure AD, OpenID Connect, and OAuth.
Yeah.
So just speaking to the projects and the role you played might actually help you get out of the role that you're currently in. Right. Because your manager has given you opportunities above and beyond what your job description would have allowed. And it's boring to read just from a hiring manager's perspective, and I say this from a point of privilege, so I need to be careful. Like it's not that it's boring. It's when you read 100, 1,000 resumes, your brain skips over the commonalities. It's just how our brains work.
Well, it's like how you, so, you know, this is kind of the thing is 10, 15 years ago when you built a resume, hey, everyone's going to put Word and Excel on their thing because that's not a common skill. Yeah. Well, now no, why would you include it? Like, that's just a given.
My eyes don't even see it. Like, it's, so when you say unit testing, regression testing, Agile, all those things, it's ubiquitous now. I don't care. I just assume you know that. I want to know, what did you do? Yeah. So when I apply, I just applied for a new job, and I transitioned, by the way, to this new job. I always start with my old resume, but I rewrite everything. And there are things that in the past I highlighted. They were significant parts of my resume, and now I've diminished them a little bit. I maybe got a little bit more brief in my description of it to make room for
the new stuff.
Yeah. So, like when you're being specific, it might also mean trimming some of the things that you were specific on in the past. I don't need to highlight my accomplishments as a junior developer or even as a team lead from 2006.
Right.
I can be very concise with that. But the things that I've done in the last 5 years, I want to heavily emphasize on my resume.
Yeah, machine learning, machine learning translations or things like that.
So you can start with your old resume, but realize you need to edit every single aspect of that resume, even the things that were perfectly polished like 5 years ago.
Yeah. And another thing to kind of also mention, and especially from the resume aspect, don't go off for paragraphs, right? Like everything you're going to do, try to be clear and concise. God, I can't remember how long ago this was, but I know I sent you like a resume because somebody gave the advice of like put in all the things that are meaningful.
It was 5 pages long.
It was ridiculous. And I was like, this feels so wrong. Like 2 pages tops.
Yeah, and honestly, like two pages is good. I'm gonna look at
the first page or two, and
what you did 10 years ago is not irrelevant, but it has
it's 10 years ago.
Yeah, it has very little impact on what you're gonna be today.
Yeah. And honestly, like if you're advancing in your career growth, it's just going to naturally be more complex, more sophisticated problems that you're going to be solving.
Yeah. The other thing that, and this is there's mixed opinions on this, but in the context of being specific, I like to put at the top of my resume what it is I'm looking for.
Your career objective.
Yeah. Like why am I even doing this? What am I hoping to pursue? And the more specific you can be, like don't say I'm a passionate software developer looking for opportunities to grow professionally. Like that doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm. It's because you really want to state your ambition.
Yeah.
Right. Because then it could tell the company like, are you even in alignment, or is that even something that they're going to be able to afford you?
Yeah. Like one of the things I'm really passionate about is SaaS. I love building SaaS products, which actually might disqualify me from a large portion of jobs. But for the ones that I am in alignment with, it lets me stand out. So if a company doesn't care about SaaS, or it's not something they're passionate about, or just the concept of product development, I probably won't enjoy working there. Mm-hmm. And if I put it in that top section, like this is something I'm really passionate about. I want to find a place to work that I get opportunities to grow in this area. When you find that company where that actually is in alignment, you are now 100 meters ahead of everybody in the race, because they're thinking about, hey, if this guy's interested in this or this girl's interested in this, there's a future here. Like they're not just going to jump ship in 2 years. Or
it might have them open their eyes to something that they might not have been considering originally. Like, oh, like this is something that we have somebody that is desires this, and they want to pursue. Maybe it's like one of the things we're working on right now is converting our application to be a progressive web app. Like having something in there about that might be like, oh, like that actually might be something we might want to pursue in the future. Yeah.
I was talking to a lady who she was 30 years deep in UI UX, and I was like, the interview was going really well. I'm like, look, you're a perfect fit for this job. My only concern is you might not want this job, because based on your experience, I get the impression you want a place where you can drive the process. You want to influence the creative process. You don't want to just be a UI UX creator.
Developer. Yeah.
You want to be, just judging from how you're talking, I get the sense that you want to be in a company that is amicable to changing everything from top down throughout the entire design process. And she's like, you hit it right on the head. I'm like, that's perfect to know, because I want to make sure where I put you is going to offer you that, and not just, you're not just going to be handed some scaffolding and say, go build some UI with these tools, because she wouldn't have wanted that job.
Right.
So be specific about what your aspirations are, and make sure that you're actually going to enjoy this job if you do get it.
Yeah. And like, from my example 10 years ago, actually this whole story is just weird. But the fact that I like I had that section on the top, and as I was driving to the interview, they reread my resume and they read the line, aspiring software developer, trying to get first job, whatever it is, like this is what I'm trying to do. And then they realized like, oh, this is a marketing job. Like this isn't this isn't gonna work. Like they're like, if you still want it, you can come interview. I was like, no, like
so there was like coding aspects to it.
No, there wasn't. They just didn't.
Why did you apply to a marketing job?
I didn't, because it's Northwestern Mutual, so like they have a lot of internships at the time.
Oh, gotcha.
And
gotcha.
then they just funneled my resume in.
You just threw your resume at NM and they
put it somewhere.
Put
it in marketing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's such an NM thing to do.
Yeah.
All right. Third tip, and this one might seem counterintuitive. Be authentic. And by this I mean, don't be generic in your response in order to be amicable to everybody.
Yeah. It's not like don't be a people pleaser, but like essentially it's have an opinion.
Have an opinion. And it's okay to have a strong opinion. And this might mean that you don't get 80% of the jobs you apply for, but it will make you stand out for the 20% that you're actually going to enjoy. And you're going to get the goal here is not to like throw out a giant net and hope that you get one job. The goal is to find the job you're going to love and to stand out as much as you can.
Yeah. And this isn't to say like that having a strong opinion is saying you have to stand by it 24/7.
Yeah.
Like opinions do change, right? But it's have the opinion, have the reasoning of why you feel that way. And you'd be surprised by having a different opinion some of the developers I work with, they have a completely different way of thinking. And just because of that, they have different opinions, and having a conversation with them leads to different solutions that neither of us would have come up with in the first place. Yeah. Like, because usually what we do is we try to find a middle ground that works out for everyone.
The most common opinion that I hear is, well, do you like working with small teams or large teams? Do you like agile or waterfall? And the answer is, I can work in any team, or I don't really care. You care. You really do. And it's really hard not to have an opinion on something as fundamental as how many people are you working with and the dynamic of the team. It's okay to have an opinion. I would rather somebody say, I love the energy of a small team. I love that. But I'm willing to work on any size team. That's an example of having an opinion, but being open to something.
Yeah, to compromise.
Yeah. But just knowing like, hey, this guy really likes working in small teams, that's good to know. Like that maybe there's an opportunity for that. And it'll also help you stand out in a culture where they value small teams.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be generic, have an opinion. The biggest differentiator you have is yourself. You are the only you. So if you want to stand out, be yourself. It sounds silly, but there's so many people that they turn on interview mode and they try to be as generic as possible. You will be forgotten faster than you can imagine if that is who you are in an interview.
Well, and there's a difference between like being in, I don't know, the way I call it, I guess, is presentation mode.
Yeah.
But like there's a way to be yourself, like kick yourself up a notch, but still be you, right? I mean, it just might be more animated, maybe be more jokey or something like that. But like, it's not things that you wouldn't do outside the norm of who you are.
Yeah. The other thing of being authentic is don't overstate your accomplishments. Like when people write resumes, it's like they automatically become a thesaurus. How many different ways can I state that I got projects done on time? To me, it's off-putting. I don't want you to. I love it when people say things in as concise of way as possible because it's easier for me to understand.
Right, and this is back to the kind of the be specific a little bit is there's probably an alternative way of saying like, okay, I complete 90% or 100% of my projects on time. 100% is a quantifiable number. Now I'm going to call BS on that because you're going to be late on something.
Yeah.
But if you can think about how you would state on your resume or in discussion, like that that has some weight to it, right? So like this is one of the things like on resumes, right? You have the skills section and it's 1 out of 5 stars or 2. Like who's scaling that? Nobody. Like it doesn't make any sense. I'm an expert in everything.
Yeah.
Are you?
Are you five out of 5 on everything? And I'm not saying use the same 5 words over and over again. Like you can vary
it.
You can vary. Just talk like you would normally talk. Like don't use words that you wouldn't say in every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't use the $10 words or $5 words.
Yeah.
Like
use the $1 word.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all budget people. Use the penny or 5-cent words.
So be authentic, be yourself. It might put you behind in most interviews, but it is going to set you apart in the ones that really matter and the ones that you really want. And then the last point, be curious. So by this, I mean, ask questions. There's always time at the end of the interview to ask questions. What are your favorite questions people ask?
Oh man. I mean, what I don't know. One that always usually catches me off guard is like, well, how did you get here?
Yeah.
I mean, because like it's just like sure. I mean, because honestly, they're going to be working with me, so like it's good that they want to know something about me. But yeah, it's just interesting. One of the ones that I usually appreciate is just like just trying to get an idea of like what does a day-to-day actually look like. I feel like that's a real simple given if you really don't know what to ask. But I mean, it helps are you going to fit? Do you enjoy the culture? Do you enjoy the work that's going to be done? Are you going to get a sense of like maybe you're going to be micromanaged? Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's not.
Some people like being micromanaged.
Yeah, they just go push this button. Okay, sure.
And then the one question I love to ask is, how do you define success? I recently took a new job, and it's a pretty big leap for me. I'm going from being a director of a department to a director of a division, and that's a lot more people. I'm responsible for selling stuff, which is something I've never had to think about.
Yeah. Do not envy you on that aspect.
Yeah. So I was really leery about this opportunity because I'm like, how do you define success? Like, and one of the questions I love to ask is 6 months from now, what do you need to see from me in order for you to look back at this decision and be happy that you hired me?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer I got was, I would like for you to have landed one new client. That's great, because here I'm thinking, boy, I got to land a client every week, or I got to like.
You have no idea.
I have no idea. So just hearing them say that, it's like, I got this, or I want you to be billable 20% of your time. Great, I can do that. But just asking that question, it alleviates a lot of my apprehension about the job. It helps me make an informed decision. It also does another thing that's really, there's a little bit of psychology here. It gets the employer picturing you in the job. And that is how, especially if this is the last question you're going to ask, it's what they're going to remember. It's the final imprint that you leave in that interview. If you ask that question and nobody else does, you are going to be remembered as the person who was envisioned in that role.
Yeah. Like, because it shows that one is that you want it, or two is like you're also thinking about, okay, how do I start this job?
Yeah. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, but one of the biggest issues with employees that are disgruntled 1, 2, 3 years after they're hired is the way that the employee measures success is very different than the way that the employer measures success.
Mm-hmm.
And the fastest way to grow is when both you and the employer view success the same. Because now your career growth makes sense. You're not frustrated. But when you look at your metrics very differently than your employer, like let's say, for instance, you look at your metrics as code quality. Like I produce really good code, but your boss looks at it as lines of code produced.
Yeah. Which, geez, I'm so glad that's not a thing. Well, I mean, I'm sure some places still do it.
It's a terrible metric, I know, but it is a real metric that some employers do have.
Right.
They're like, I want to know how this developer's doing. Let me see how many lines of code they checked in. Terrible way to measure a person, but it's real. You need to know that right away.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand, how am I going to be judged? Because it's going to make your growth make so much more sense. And it also is going to help you find out if there's a red flag here. Like maybe there's something here that
Yeah.
is
That
worth
you're-
avoiding. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's better to know then rather than have to figure out and go through this whole process again. And
During
now
your
you gotta,
review,
yeah.
So be prepared, be specific, be authentic, and be curious. And this might hurt you in a lot of the interviews, but it's going to help you tremendously in the ones that really matter. And it will overall result in you being happier at your next place. So
And also the employer being a lot more confident in
Yeah.
who they got. So
yeah, that's our 2 cents
yeah, our $1.
or $1. Yeah.